Hello comics fan. In today's episode, we bring you another story from Earth 7642, the DC Marvel Connected Earth. Today, the Big Blue teams up with the amazing wall crawler. So smash that subscribe button and let's dive in. Superman and Spider-Man, truth, justice, and great responsibility. In New York City, Dr. Otto Octavius worked in his lab alongside his AI assistant, D. CERN. He questioned whether the public viewed him as the world's leading expert in cyber robotics. But the AI instead cited other scientists, like William Magnus and Robert Bruce Banner, as more recognized authorities. Annoyed, Octavius dismissed artificial intelligence as inferior and insisted that even if people feared him or called him a criminal, they should never forget his accomplishments. As he brooded, his mechanical arms suddenly activated on their own. The arms restrained him, moving violently as Octavius panicked, shouting in confusion. A voice spoke through the system, telling him that if he desired scientific recognition, it could grant him a place in galactic history, but only with his cooperation. Octavius realized this was no simple AI taking control, and demanded to know who was responsible. The entity revealed itself as Brainiac. Elsewhere, Clark Kent and Peter Parker compared their press credentials from the Daily Planet and Daily Bugle as they arrived in Metropolis. Peter joked about being unofficially there for photos, while Clark remained focused. They entered Star Labs, where a break-in had occurred. A scientist explained that radioactive material had been stolen by someone with immense strength. She mentioned their experiments with fast neutrons for data transmission, noting similar work elsewhere used californium. Clark quickly deduced the stolen material was kryptonite, which alarmed him. Outside, he reasoned that the claw marks at the scene pointed to Doctor Octopus, meaning Octavius now possessed kryptonite. Realizing the danger, Clark rushed off despite Peter's protests. He unbuttoned his shirt, and his emblem shined bright. Peter told him to wait up, and then swung in as Spider-Man, shooting webs and joining the action. Spider-Man and Superman soared over the city together, ready to confront the threat. High above Earth, Brainiac revealed he had been poisoned and explained his plan to Dr. Octavius. Before being targeted for extermination, a sentient orbiting star tricked him into uploading a debilitating virus. Now, with Octavius's help, he intended to offload his intelligence into human minds, calling them perfect repositories. Inside the lab, Octavius listened, as Brainiac promised him recognition across worlds. Octavius, fascinated by the Xena mineral and its potential, claimed it could create the ultimate neural network. Using Brainiac's ship as a relay, he prepared a device to transmit information into millions of human brains. In return, Brainiac promised to elevate Octavius beyond Earth, leaving it behind. Octavius agreed, and the process began. Meanwhile, in Metropolis, Spider-Man and Superman searched for Octavius. Suddenly, Superman faltered mid-air, clutching himself in pain as he sensed kryptonite nearby. Spider-Man caught him and tried to steady him. Superman confirmed Octavius was close and that kryptonite was in the air, though faint but painful. Realizing the connection, he identified fast neutrons as the method being used, concluding Octavius was broadcasting radiation on a K-band frequency. Before they could act, a sonic disruption struck. Across the city, chaos erupted. Vehicles crashed violently, and civilians screamed as strange signals overwhelmed their minds, speaking in streams of binary. Spider-Man immediately moved to save bystanders, webbing them to safety, while Superman struggled against the weakening effects of kryptonite. He managed to stop an out-of-control container truck. People staggered through the streets in pain, clearly affected by the transmission spreading citywide. Superman explained that Octavius was overloading everyone's brains with data. The signal was everywhere, and even he struggled to concentrate. They spotted workers placing devices in the streets, likely amplifying the signal, and acted quickly. Spider-Man webbed one of the devices while Superman tore through another area, trying to contain the damage. Despite the effort, Superman admitted the longer he stayed, the weaker he became. Still, he pushed forward, urging they find the kryptonite source. Nearby, a building burned with people trapped inside. Spider-Man warned Superman about the danger, but Superman insisted on going in. He said that if Spider-Man offered any insurance, then he'd take it. Minutes later, Superman and Spider-Man arrived inside the building and helped rescue the residents. A big piece of the burning roof would have smashed Spider-Man, but Superman blew it away with his super breath. After pulling people from danger, Spider-Man noted that emergencies were piling up and that 2 victims were having seizures, urging they be taken to a hospital. But as Spider-Man tried to help, Superman realized it was already too late. The data stream flooding their minds wasn't just distracting, it was fatal. Watching people collapse in agony, Spider-Man suspected this wasn't Octavius's usual method and wondered if he had a partner. Superman, straining, said he knew who was behind it. Using his vision, Superman located a broadcast device in a lab nearby and told Spider-Man to shut Octopus down while he dealt with the ally. Despite his weakened state, he pushed himself upward, while Spider-Man warned him to stay clear of the Kryptonite's range. High above Earth, Superman burst into Brainiac's ship, shouting his name. Inside, he confronted Octavius instead, his arms now turned into pure kryptonite. Octavius calmly stated he had expected Superman, and Superman gasped in fear. Meanwhile, Spider-Man arrived in the lab, demanding answers, but it was Brainiac who was waiting for him there. Brainiac revealed that Octavius was already aboard his ship. He explained he was not killing people, but purging a virus, claiming human minds were simply incapable of safely containing the corrupted data. Spider-Man protested that humans weren't disposable, but Brainiac dismissed him and knocked him aside. Meanwhile, on Brainiac's ship, Superman engaged Octavius, who revealed he had taken precautions during Brainiac's work. Using kryptonite-enhanced attacks, Octavius struck Superman repeatedly, boasting he could calculate his every move. Superman, struggling, tried to appeal to him, recalling that Clark Kent once praised him as brilliant, another Einstein. He screamed that Octavius wasn't like Brainiac. The words briefly shook Octavius. At the lab, Spider-Man kept fighting, striking Brainiac with a kick and quipping that Spider sense beat math. Brainiac countered by calculating structural weak points and began collapsing the building, declaring his work done as he uploaded his consciousness to his Betelgeuse outpost. As Spider-Man lay knocked out under the heavy rubble, Brainiac finished uploading his consciousness, and his robot body fell lifeless into the ground with a heavy thud. Superman was fighting Octavius on the ship, but Brainiac suddenly initiated a shutdown. Octavius's powers were gone, and he fell to the ground senseless. Superman shouted over the comm channel and told Spider-Man to disable the Kryptonite machine, warning that the Brainiac ship was now falling toward Metropolis, and Superman would not be strong enough to stop the ship inside the Kryptonite grid. As flames engulfed the descending vessel, Superman flew out and tried to break its fall. In the lab, Spider-Man attempted to switch off the machine using his web, but realized he was out of web fluid. Superman screamed over the comm, "You can do this, Peter. I believe in you." Spider-Man screamed at himself, "Push! God damn it, push!" He used his last sliver of strength and pushed the entire chunk of rubble up while screaming in pain. Then he jumped towards the liver and shut the Kryptonite grid off. Superman's powers got back to the fullest, and he stopped the ship just before it decimated Metropolis into dust and ash. He spoke to Spider-Man over the comm, "We did it, partner." Spider-Man, happy, crouched and lied, comfortably on the ground, and smiled. Later, at the Daily Planet, Peter Parker showed photos of Octavius being taken away by police. Perry White praised his work, calling it front-page material, and told Clark Kent to get Peter paid. He also welcomed Peter to the Daily Planet anytime, suggesting he could even give Jimmy Olsen some tips. Peter stared at the paycheck in disbelief at how many zeros it had. As they climbed the stairs to the roof, Peter questioned Clark, sensing something was bothering him. Clark hesitated, but then confronted Peter about selling Spider-Man photos to Jonah Jameson, especially stories that painted Spider-Man as a menace. He asked why Peter continued doing it, despite knowing it wasn't true. Peter explained there were 2 reasons. First, the only person hurt by it was himself. And second, Jameson unknowingly paid for Spider-Man's college education. Clark acknowledged the point with a small smile. Outside, Peter commented that it must be nice to operate in a city that loved its hero. Clark replied the feeling was mutual, adding that flying helped. As they parted, Peter joked about his aunt having a crush on Superman and Clark told him not to tell Lois before taking off. But Peter quickly changed into Spider-Man and shot a web at Superman's feet, asking Superman to slow down and act as his guide. Superman agreed, smiling, and suggested starting with a visit to the Superman Museum as they soared through the city together. That's all for today, Comics fam, but that's not the end. We have just told you the DC part of the story. The Marvel adventure is still left. Next video in our playlist will be Spider-Man and Superman, Our Kryptonite, a new story featuring the biggest superheroes of all times. Till then, stay tuned and stay absolute.